Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Winning Fish Bumps, and happy Friday to you all. Hey, we're going to jump right in. I mean, we've got Rob Fegan with us with Benvito. Did I say that right? Why'd that
You
sound
did.
weird coming out of my?
You're
Huh?
good, right?
Why did it sound right? Yeah, it's been a busy morning already, but I'm really excited for this conversation. Rob has been doing some really great stuff, helping Microsoft partners leverage LinkedIn, as well as some other tools to build relationships with Microsoft employees. And we're going to talk today about very practical ways of using LinkedIn for relationship building. So, Rob, welcome to Winning Fist Bumps.
Welcome. It's good to have you.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, we are too. So, hey, before we get started, I let Daniel kind of take the lead. Tell us a little bit about you and your company, and I think specifically, like how you help these Microsoft partners, and what are some of the challenges they face that I know you crush it with them and help them overcome.
Yeah, for me, I start with answering a big question that I get from almost every Microsoft partner, and that is, how do I get leads from Microsoft? So if I just peel it back and I think, what's the one thing that is universal to all partners? It's how do I get leads from Microsoft? And that's really, peeling back the onion. And that's a question that I've struggled with for 15 plus years as an individual contributor in the Microsoft partner ecosystem, and then as a founder or a co-founder and owner of a Microsoft partner, having to deal with that very question. And that's what I'm really excited to get into today and start to peel back the onion on that question. So yeah, it's really been a fun journey. It's, lots of twists and turns working with Microsoft. It's a behemoth of an organization, and change is constant. So I tell partners that, look, no matter what you think is right today, it's going to change, a year from now, 2 years from now. But regardless, the opportunity to generate and build a business with Microsoft is phenomenal. The trajectory you can send yourself on is, it's just endless in terms of the opportunity. So I'm excited to share more about answering that question as we get into this.
And it seems like that would
Awesome,
be
thanks, Rob.
just from us, our company selling to SMBs and those sort of partners. That in itself has its challenges, right? Finding out what the needs are. And I could only imagine to be that much more difficult if you're trying to sell to Microsoft. So it sounds like it'd be valuable for people that are really trying to sell to Microsoft to be able to have a partner like you to help them.
Yeah, it's well, what's interesting, you bring up a great point. You sell to an SMB as an example, and you're trying to navigate an organization. Well, think about trying to navigate Microsoft. I mean, there
Right.
is 100,000 plus employees. There's 35,000-ish quota carrying salespeople or customer facing people. So it on its own is just a behemoth to navigate. And so it's a challenge, and it's one that I think when you understand how to do it and the tactics, it can really change how you show up in both Microsoft's eyes and in your customers' eyes. So there's a lot to it, and yeah, let's we can start unpacking it here.
Sure. So good.
Well, oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead,
I was just
Daniel.
going to say with the subject is, effectively using LinkedIn. I don't know if that's the direction you were going, Brandon, but just asking, how are you doing that? Are you starting to use LinkedIn to do this outreach, or how have you been using that in your cycle?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll sort of, before I talk about how I do it today, I'll talk about where I started in that journey. And for me, when I started started posting on LinkedIn, I was like, I'm not sure I can do this. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to show up. I don't know what I'm going to say, and it was really a struggle. I mean, I iterated just even thinking about a post for weeks at a time. I'd be like, oh, I can't do it. I'm not sure if this is right. And it was horrific. I mean, and we're going back a couple of years now, but it was just this journey of like, oh, I can't even do a post. Never mind showing up on video or doing a live. I was like, can't do
I
a word
love it.
right there. And so I was, then I thought, okay, I know what I want to say. But then I said, I type it out and I feel like, are they gonna, who am I to say this?
Mhm.
Like Microsoft has said this. I'm like, no, I'm bringing my own perspective. And it was such a huge hurdle for me to get over, was that sort of imposter syndrome, you'll hear it called, or any number of things. But it was just the fear of being out there. And so that was probably the biggest challenge I faced in just starting the journey, was getting over my own fear of showing up and showing up as me. So that was one of the biggest lessons learned for me there.
Rob, I so appreciate you saying that because I think so often we don't go back to the basics and talk about those things. Like, um, look, I share the story. The first blog article I ever wrote, I fretted over it for at least a month and changed it, reworked it, had to pay somebody to do a graphic because I didn't know how to do graphics and Canva didn't exist then. And then finally I published it and I shared it in LinkedIn and Facebook, and no one showed up and no one gave a crap, and then I had a friend, and I put it in quotes because he is a friend,
Yeah.
but he sent me an email and it said about your blog, and he took my blog and copied it and pasted it in a Word document and turned on track changes and went through and edited it all. And he said, I figured if you were going to blog in public, you should probably do it correctly. And what did I do? Right?
Yeah.
I deleted the freaking thing, and it took me 2 years to ever show up again. This fear of showing up on LinkedIn and social media is very real for people, and I appreciate you being, transparent and talking about that. What got you over that hump?
Yeah, it's a great question. And for me, it was I just did it. I was like, okay, I'm going to put it out there similar to you. And I was, I think that even today, I probably still only have 1 or 2 likes on that initial post, and one of them was me. so so no, I ended up doing it, and then I just made a commitment to myself is that you know what, I'm going to write one thing every day, Monday to Friday, just one thing, whether it's good or bad. And people at the very beginning, I'd get notes back and say, hey, there's a bunch of spelling mistakes. I just say, nah, I'm Canadian. That's how we spell it there. So I just stopped worrying about it and forced myself to do it. And at the beginning, it was hard because I was doing that before really OpenAI or ChatGPT and all these sort of places where I could start without a blank slate. Back then it was a blank slate. I had this sort of white screen that I just had to start typing, and they weren't great, and they just improved over time. And I kept doing it and kept sticking with it, and so it got better over time.
That's
Well,
great.
it looks like you've got Joseph up there just commented that he's an admirer of your content, so it works.
Yeah.
And Nora, would you mind showing Mauricio's comment on there too? I think, you know, him saying getting out of your own fear and showing up is indeed a great lesson. And, I think as we move into this next season, if you will, this next generation of business, and I do believe that we've moved very quickly. COVID triggered a bunch of things, work from home, a lot more remote, virtual selling, virtual relationship building, everything else. I do believe that we're in a new season. And I think what Mauricio said and you sharing your experience are so important, Rob. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was going to say though, Brendan, it's interesting. Your story is someone must have really cared about you, because most people don't care that much. And I think that's like the big takeaway is like when you're writing content, it's like everyone's looking at this, and now I'm going to get that email that Brandon got of like, I need to address my, make those changes. But the reality is like,
Yeah,
most people don't care that much. It's not like you're writing this content and
it's a
people are
good point.
going to nitpick it down to, typos. Sometimes typos are nice because they show that you're not using AI to write the content for you. But,
Right.
Yeah.
that's
Well,
one.
I'll throw this out there in that conversation too. My post yesterday sucked from an engagement standpoint. It sucked, and I thought, I'm like, okay, this is really important information. This is going to be good, and it actually not yesterday, the day before, and it was like my lowest engagement for the last month. And I'm sitting there looking at it, but you know what? And I will be honest, there was a part of me that's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? And what do I do? And I thought this LinkedIn thing, and like my whole brain just got the best of me. I'm like, whoa, stop. Tomorrow's another day. It's all good. It doesn't matter. It's not about impressions anyway. It's about, are you influencing and helping people in their business? And not every post can be your best post.
And that's such a great point. And that's how, that's the mindset I show up with, is that I don't care if one person or 100 people like this post. for me, I know I delivered at least one piece of value or one piece of information that I think is valuable for my community. And that's really, if I do that, I feel like it's a success. And so that's the mindset shift I made to stop worrying about, oh, nobody's looking at it, nobody's seeing it. It's no, you know what? Even if one person sees this, and Joseph, thank you. I mean, it's, when one person sees it and they get some benefit from that, I'm like, great. That's all I can ask for, and that's what I do it for now. Is just help that one person. If 100 people get benefit from it, that's fantastic. But if just one person sees it and says, okay, let me try that, that's a win for me.
And I think what a lot of us need to remember too is that, and Daniel, you were mentioning it, is a lot of people consume the content, but they're what you call lurkers or viewers. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily say anything, but then all the stories we hear, James Gilman's talked about all the stuff he was doing on LinkedIn. He wasn't sure, and then he went to his high school reunion, and people were like, "Dude, you're crushing it on LinkedIn," and he's like, I had never seen any of them like or comment on anything that I had done, anything that I had published. And yet I'm walking down the hallway like a rock star because everyone's like, dude, I see you all over LinkedIn. And we got to remember that.
Yeah, it is a crazy feeling when somebody says to you, oh, you're the LinkedIn person, or you're the guy I see on LinkedIn all the time. I'm like, well, okay.
Or just when you talk about the low engagement numbers, like, what does that even mean? For me, that might mean, and I'll be transparent, maybe 400 or 500 engagements for me, impressions might be kind of average to low. But if you think about walking into a room and speaking to 400 or 500 people, like, that would be pretty intimidating. It could be intimidating, but it also has you're able to speak to that many people. That's a large amount. If, like you said, if you can affect one person, or if in this concept of sales, if you could get one lead or one, and potential lead off of that, that's great, even if it's a low impressions for that post.
Yeah.
So let's transition into that, Rob. How are you using LinkedIn as a relationship building and networking tool? And I said it that way intentionally for people listening, because it's not, how do I go use LinkedIn to blast messages, or if I post it, they will come, kind of that mindset. But I know you look at it as a networking and as an outreach tool.
Yeah. Well, let's start with sort of why I think it's so important. And you think about it, in my world with the Microsoft partner ecosystem, there's 400,000 partners in that ecosystem. And so it's really crowded. And part of the value that I see in LinkedIn and using it as a networking tool is that it gives you an opportunity to show up. It gives you an opportunity to be seen. And, to your point, Daniel, it's hard to get, 400 people in a room. Mm-hmm. But LinkedIn is a platform where, to your point, if 400 people see this post, I've now sort of made myself a little bit more familiar or a little bit more known to that audience. And in my case, to Microsoft's employees or sellers. So it's a really important tool to leverage in that. And, I talk about a formula, and we'll get to that in a minute, but you really have to show up, and you have to show up consistently. And that's the key, I think, that a lot of people miss in the platform, is that they show up, they post something, and then they disappear for weeks at a time. And we're all busy. We have a short attention span, so we see it and then it's gone. It leaves us. But if we show up consistently over time, that we start to build some familiarity. We start to build some trust. People start to understand your perspective and get a sort of an introduction to your content. It's really powerful from that perspective. So, we talked about why it's important and sort of the high level of what we're doing, but let's take it a level deeper. And I'll share with you a formula that I share with my partners, and I refer to it as the ACE formula. So ACE, and A is to attract. And that is that first component of getting out there, making yourself known, sharing content, sharing your perspective. So you can do that through posting. You can do that through commenting. Following, I'm a big fan of following influencers inside of Microsoft. There are, one, they own the platform, so it doesn't hurt that they're on there. But there's a lot of people inside of Microsoft that are very active on the platform. And if you can engage with them through their content, you're attracting them to you, to your profile. They're going to go say, okay, who is Rob? What is Rob all about? They'll just take a quick peek, and I've now just, again, increased that level of familiarity for me and who I am. And if I do that over time, I believe you earn the right to go to the next step in the framework, which is see or connect. So I can now, through that engagement with that person, either comments or them engaging with my content, I can connect with them. And so that's that is where you take that relationship to the next level. It's like going up to somebody in a sort of a networking event and saying, hey, hi, I'm Rob. It's making that first introduction, and not for the point of, hey, I'm Rob and I'm going to sell you something, but hey, I'm Rob, and here's something I'm interested in, and I heard that you're interested in it, and let's talk about that. Just creating that relationship there. And then finally is is to enrich. So again, you talk about this, and I've heard you say it many times, but not to pitch slap them. Enrich the relationship, add value while you're building that relationship. Just don't try and show up and sell them something. Show up and add value to them, whether that's through content. I'm a big fan. When somebody connects with me, the first thing I do is I just leave them a voicemail saying, hey, thank you for connecting, and talk about the one thing that drew me to their profile. So whether that's a common interest, whether it's common school, it doesn't really matter. It's all about, hey, just want to say thanks. And if you can leave them with a piece of value, that's even better. So it's that 3-step ACE formula that I'm a big fan of, and think it really helps people sort of build a framework to operate within on the LinkedIn platform.
Nice.
It's cool. Thanks for that. So it's attract, connect, enrich. That's your ACE formula, your 3-step. When you were talking about attract, one of the things that you said quickly, and I want to slow you down to explain it, is you said, if you engage with their content over time, then it leads you to be able to connect.
Yeah.
I think where a lot of people struggle is, what does it mean over time? How much time do I need to dedicate to this? And, it's not if you show up, they will come type of thing.
Right.
How do you explain that, or how do you coach people on that attract stage of commenting and posting and engaging? But you said over time. What does that mean exactly?
So it's interesting because there's not one right answer for people. That if you're engaging with somebody that's very active on LinkedIn, it may be a few days. You may have a conversation going back and forth, and you may be able to connect with them same day. If you see them engage with your comments and they engage back, and it's sort of a back and forth, you've earned that right, in my opinion, to reach out and connect and say, hey, just take things offline. But then in some cases where it can be over the duration of weeks, where somebody may post semi-consistently, and you start to build that relationship over time. So I don't think there's one right answer, but I think when people start connecting back with you or engaging back with you, that is really a clear sign that it's a good time to connect. And then for those that aren't, or don't connect with you or don't engage back with you, even if you get a couple engagements one way over a period of a week or 2 weeks, I still am comfortable with reaching out and saying, hey, I appreciate your content. It's really helped me in X, and I'd love to connect and have you as part of my network. So
great. It was good timing, the explanation right after Bob. We had the comment from Bob who said it's important to get right in front of the right 400 people, because we mentioned people are going to see your post, but not to say it's not important. Like if people that you're not selling to see your post, because it might help with the reach of your posts. But the important thing is making sure that the people that you want to see your content and want to see that activity see it. So I think you nailed it when you explained that framework and how to do it.
Yeah, and just to add on to that is that for me, I write to a very specific person. So I don't try and write to 400 people. I'm very clear. I have somebody in mind that I know that I can help. It's this, fictitious person, but this is the world they live in. This is what their goals and their dreams and what the things they want to accomplish are in their business. And so I write to that person every day. I don't, unless I'm writing something a little bit more personal about me, I'm writing to that person. And so I can frame it up and, it speaks to those right people. So to Bob's point, that's what I'm doing. I'm writing to my ideal person that I believe I could help.
You know what I've started doing lately, Rob, is when at any given time, we've got 4, 5, 6 people that we're having, or teams that we're having conversations with. And what I found is an easy way of creating content is I just think about the conversations I'm having with them
Yeah.
in discovery phases and they're asking. And I'm just creating. So I've got 3 topics I talk to, but then I think about their questions and where they are, and I'll write content within my 3 topics, but specifically to what they're asking, because I figure if 3, 4, 5 of them, or even one of them has the question, didn't we learn that in like elementary school? If one of you has the question, all of you have the question. So there's no dumb
Exactly.
questions.
For sure.
Yeah, it's funny, Ed. So I was on a call yesterday and I got a question that I wasn't expecting. And I was like, whoa, okay. And so the question was, how do I find these people that work at Microsoft? And I'm like, wait a sec, they're all on LinkedIn. And we had this very discussion that you and I are having today around the ACE formula. Is they're there. These people are out on LinkedIn. They are actively there, whether they're participating, but they're all on LinkedIn. Some are lurkers, some are posters, some are actively commenting, engaging, but they're there. And so, to your point about if one person has the question, lots of people have the question. It didn't dawn on me that maybe some people don't recognize that LinkedIn is one of the best ways to connect with the audience in my world from a Microsoft perspective, with Microsoft field people, Microsoft sellers, Microsoft sort of partner people. It's one of the best and, in my opinion, quickest ways to make those connections.
Hey, and I would say, sorry, Daniel, did I cut you off?
You're fine.
One quick thing for everybody listening. If you're hemming and hawing, look, LinkedIn is the business platform for the 21st century, period. And I know we're only 24 years into it, and maybe something, but look, coming into the first almost 25 years, first quarter of this century, it is the platform for business, hands down. And the question for everybody is, do you want to be successful in business? And if so, are you on it? Are you using it? And I don't mean I have a profile. Are you using it to meet people? Are you using it to build relationships? Are you using it to create conversations? Because it's only through conversations that opportunities develop. So are they there? Hell yeah, they're there. Are you there?
So I'm gonna.
All right, Dan.
We're gonna go nerd. We're gonna go nerd style now. We got to go a little bit nerd.
Let's do it.
Okay, so you have a very nuanced human approach to how you're using LinkedIn. So we got to do AI for a few minutes, if that's okay. So
let's do it. Yeah, for sure.
Are you seeing any sort of? It doesn't seem like you could automate your process, but are you using any sort of generative AI, any sort of AI tools in your process?
Hey, Rob, real quick, did you really? You just put on the nerd glasses to ask that question? I love it.
They are my blue blockers, but also I thought it was a good.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, sorry, Rob.
It's okay. Now I feel like I have to go get a pair of glasses.
I know. I was looking for mine. I don't know where I put them. I was going to put them on too.
No. And seriously, so I do use AI. So I'm a big fan of AI to help me create the content. I spent a lot of time, though, initially, I was very concerned about my voice. I have a very, defined way I speak to my audience. I don't have a lot of jokes. I'm not a super funny kind of guy. It's like I'm straight to the point. I want to share, but I want to be quick about it. And so I spent a lot of time, I'm going to say, training ChatGPT on what I sound like, how I like to answer questions, how I like to provide information. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And so I now do use ChatGPT. I say, here's what I want to write about. Here's the point I'm trying to make. And I'll give it a fair bit of information, sometimes more than it probably needs, but I like to get my voice in there, even if it says it can mimic my voice. And then I take that content and I use that as my launching pad. I don't do a cut and paste. For me, that just doesn't work. It doesn't capture the nuances of working with Microsoft, but it gives me something more than a blank slate to work from. So it really helps me in that respect. And it's really shortened the time it takes me to generate content for LinkedIn. So I'm a big fan of it. I think it's got a great place. I think it really has expedited my journey on LinkedIn in terms of being able to provide more consistent content and be less of a strain on, having to sit on a blank piece of paper and write from scratch. So I'm a big fan of it. I think that it's got a great place for it, but you really have to ensure that it has your voice, because when somebody shows up with me on a call, I want it to sound exactly like I show up on LinkedIn. And so I'm very, very aware of that and very conscious of how I show up in a post or on a video. And then, that reflects who I am and what you're going to get when you actually talk to me.
For sure.
We should probably get Rob access to a twin that he can train.
That would be really helpful for him. No, I think the people that are going, or not detractors, but the people that are against the idea of AI content, it's typically, and I think we talked about this last week, it's like it's bad AI content that's really the problem, and it's content without that human interaction, whether it's more human up front to feed it, as you mentioned, or human on the other end to curate, or not curate, but edit the content so that it's more likely. So that's
great.
Moment of silence.
Did I thought I glitched. I thought I was gone.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say something. No, I would say, so it sounds like most of what you're using it for is content generation, not so much reporting or any sort of
I completely, right now in terms of what I use it for, it's content generation. Although within the Microsoft ecosystem with Copilot and all those things, I think there's lots of opportunity for me to integrate AI and Copilot into my business and business processes. So it will be exciting to see where that goes.
For sure. I heard that last week. I think it was last week that Microsoft's going to be adding it into all their Office tools.
Copilot. As of 2 days ago, everyone is entitled to it now. For either there's a free version right up to a paid version, whether you're on a individual plan or you're on a business or a corporate plan. So yeah, it is going to be pervasive now throughout the entire Microsoft ecosystem. So
nice. I did have one more question. I think I mentioned it earlier before I called, but you had a post that was super nice recently, a personal post about your family, and about in 2024 that family's going to, how did you say it? Family's everything. I was just wondering how you're applying that. I mean, I thought it was great because it shows your personal side on LinkedIn, but then also how you're applying it in your business.
For me, it's, I started off on my LinkedIn journey and it was very much all about business. It was business, business, business. And I realized that, for me, lots of things are going on in my life personally and in my life from a work point of view. And they're not separate. To me, it's all one, I'm living this one life. So I feel like it's important to integrate more of my personal life, and that not to excess, but just to share a little bit about what's going on with me and, make it a little more human. It's like, look, this is who I am. It's not for Facebook or it's not Instagram, but it's just a little bit about what I'm doing. And I'm very conscious that I want to integrate more of that into my go forward in 2024, is that it's nice. All the pieces of Rob are coming out.
That's really cool.
Well, and I think it's really important because in a real life or face-to-face environment, we have that chit chat before we talk about business, which is where you get a chance to know each other. Mm-hmm. You get a sense of, do I trust this person? Do I like this person? And we don't have that in LinkedIn. It's the only way we have it is if we start divulging that information about ourselves ahead of time, and that's the way that works. Well, Rob, we're wrapping up our time here. I know you've got to get going, and we really appreciate you coming. Before we go, Dan, do you have any last questions for him? If not, Rob, we want to hear how people can connect with you.
Not as questions so much as that's really cool. I saw that you have a show in like 30 minutes. You have another live.
I do. I'm right back on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you want to tell us anything about you, where to find you and the kind of your shows, and so people can.
No, thanks. For me, best place to find me is on LinkedIn, and I'm there. I'm very active, so feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And if you want to get more about how to partner with Microsoft, you can visit www.venvito.net. And I would encourage you to start with a document I have called your partner score. You can download it for free, and it gives you an idea of how to start your journey with Microsoft. So that's the best way to get a hold of me, is LinkedIn or via my website.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
This has
And
been
I got to
great,
tell,
guys.
yeah, and I got to tell everyone I'm going to be gone the next 2 weeks. Sorry, I'm traveling, but we've got some cool guests and some co-hosts for Brandon that will hopefully do a lot better job than I do. So,
Stuck with me.
what's that?
Yeah, stuck with me. Everybody's stuck with me next few weeks.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Rob, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us today. Have a great rest of your Friday, everybody. And until next time, fist bump it out.
Fist bump.
Oh.